Well, hello there, I'm Rafael Di Furia, back at it again in beautiful Verona, Italy. I happen to find myself back here in Italy, and I thought I would take a little time to come to the city of Verona. It's quickly becoming one of my favorite places to be able to come back to when I come back to Italy. And I can say that coming back this time, there are some thoughts that I've had about when I was living here and the cost of living, because, I mean, there's this beauty here. I mean, this is maybe one of the more touristy areas. It's still early in the morning, so that's why there's not so many people out. Usually it's packed with tourists here. But one of the things that I've really come to appreciate about being able to take time to visit here is that there are some of the sides of Italy that can be a little bit surprising, a little bit annoying at times, that I don't have to deal with now coming for a quick visit. And those are some of the surprise costs of living in this country. Some of those costs might be financial, some of those costs might be emotional, and then others maybe to the waistline. Anyway, I'm Rafael Di Furia. Welcome back for another episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter, and roll that intro. So two of the first hidden costs, which might not necessarily be so hidden when you are renting an apartment here, but that you should be aware of, that are maybe not the most apparent to somebody who's just coming here for the first time, is there are certain obligations that the tenant will have that the landlord is not going to have to deal with. And one of those is dealing with the water heater every year. It might depend on your contract and how things are set up specifically with you and your landlord, but generally speaking, because the water in Italy can be very hard and can have a lot of wear and tear on something like a water heating unit, it might actually be necessary for you to get an annual inspection and cleaning done. Theoretically, the person doing it should be certified and be able to provide some sort of documentation that they actually have done this service. And so you will want to be careful. It's something that I've seen as little as 80, but could be like 200. Maybe we could say 150, kind of in the middle ground. And also keep in mind that some of the prices that I'm going to be mentioning in this episode will really vary depending on where in the country you are, or your specific contract that you're having with your landlord, or even whatever it might be that you're dealing with. The costs of living across the country can really vary greatly. Another thing that might have to do with where you are living, depending on if you're living in an apartment building, a condominium. If there are over a certain amount of apartments within the building, you might actually have to deal with condominium fees or some sort of maintenance that will be going on. And it could be as little as maybe in the hundreds per year. But if there are major works that need to be done, it could be in the thousands per year. And depending on what is going to be done, what works will be carried out, that actually could be your responsibility, or it might be the responsibility of the landlord. And even if maybe you are seeing a rental agreement and it says X amount for the rent, you also want to keep in mind, how much is the spesa condominiale? How much is this extra condominial expense that might have to be paid? Is it going to be paid monthly? Is it going to be paid quarterly? Are you just going to get a random bill every once in a while? How does this all work? And theoretically, in some buildings, it could be a set fee per month, but it could be in others where it's just they're going to charge you a portion of whatever is going to be charged that month, according to what floor you're on and how big your apartment is and how much of the services from the building that you may or may not need. And in Italy, it's not uncommon to find that you will have communal heating shared with all of the apartments in the building. So if everybody uses a lot more heat, then everybody's going to have to pay a lot more. Or if only one apartment is using a ton of heat, everybody is going to have that shared cost between them. There can be buildings that are maybe a little bit more modernized, where you might find that there will be monitors or gauges or meters for specific apartments, and they might calculate based off of that. But personally, if I were to move back to Italy, I would be looking for an apartment that has completely autonomous heating. Whether it's electric or gas, that's tough to say. Gas in this country can be quite expensive, but electric can also be expensive in this country. It's kind of 6 to 1, half a dozen or the other at that point. I remember there was one apartment that I was in when I lived here where originally the water heater was on gas and then everything else was on electric. And at a certain point, the owner decided to switch the water heater over to an electric water heater instead of staying on the gas. And on my bill, instead of paying X amount for gas, basically when that switched over to the electrical system, that similar amount got transferred over. Keep in mind, this was a couple of years ago. And then something even to keep in mind when it comes to the bills that you'll have, like say, whether it's gas or electric, you might want to be very careful about the type of contract that you have, because there are going to be contracts that might offer you a little bit of a better option in the initial kind of phase if you agree to a rate which is flexible depending on the market rate, or if you want to have a cut specific non-market rate value, then you might have to pay a little bit more for that. But in the long term, maybe it could pay off. Again, it's one of these things that you have to compare and contrast and really do a lot of research into, because even the way that they're advertised can be very confusing. You'll see kilowatt hour and this hour and that hour, and then you also have to think about, just to be connected to the system, to the network, you will have a fee for that included in your monthly or bi-monthly bill. Because that's another thing also to keep in mind, is that not all of your bills will necessarily come monthly, depending on what type of contract you have, especially for utilities. They could come every other month, and maybe not necessarily so reliably on a specific date. Another thing that takes a lot of people by surprise when they move to Italy is that there is a TV tax. What is a TV tax, for those of you who might come from part of the world where that's not really a thing? It's generally to support the public broadcasting network of the country. Like, for example, in Italy, I believe it's called Canone Rai. And Rai is kind of like the main network of channels in Italy that are government funded. And that actually can be included on your electricity bill. I believe in the past when I was here, I did see it included on my internet bill. And so one way or another, you will end up paying for it. Even if you don't watch TV here, theoretically, even if you're just watching streaming services, you may have to pay this TV tax. And in practice, there's not really any kind of way to get around it. Another bill that you might have to think about would be maybe an internet bill. And one thing with the internet fees here is that when you are looking at offers, they don't always give you all of the information up front. For example, you might have to think about, well, okay, this is how much this package will cost for 24 months. How much does it cost after that 24 months? Is there a cancellation fee if you want to cancel the contract? Not all companies do have a cancellation fee if you want to cut off your contract. Like, for example, if I'm not mistaken, at this moment in time, Iliad and Alpsim have offers available where there is not necessarily any type of cancellation fee if you do want to cut off your contract. But for example, if you're with a company like Wincre, I had a really negative experience with them, that even after I left Italy and had canceled my contract, they still hadn't canceled my contract, and my bank account was being drawn from every month for about a year after I left, until what would have been the kind of finish date of the contract that I had at that point. So I would have been happy to have paid that all at once. It was just very annoying to see like money coming out of my account every month. And I wasn't sure that in fact it was going to stop when my contract was supposed to stop, because I'm sitting in another country. I had some friends helping me with the situation, but even then it was still really a headache to deal with. But another thing which could come as a surprise to some would be if there's an installation fee. Some companies do make it very clear that installation is free. It's a special bonus because they're considering within a 2-year period that they are taking like €5 a month as the kind of compensation for that installation. But there could be other companies which you might have to deal with, which would give you a fee of, say, €40. I believe in the past I did see as high as maybe €60 or €70, but I don't think that's as common these days. So just keep in mind that there can be these little fees that come along with it. And then even if, say, for example, you get an internet line, does it come with a phone line? And if it comes with a phone line, what are the restrictions on that number? Do you pay by the minute? Is it unlimited calling nationally? Those are some details that you want to make sure that you do look at, because those can creep up on you if you really don't understand what you're getting into. Unfortunately, I have seen a lot of people move to Italy. They think they're getting a great deal, and then all of a sudden they get a higher bill, much higher than what they were even expecting to begin with. Another thing to do with getting an internet deal in this country is that maybe you might actually have to pay a rental fee for the modem. And in that case, it could be anywhere from maybe like €3 to €7 per month. I was checking recently, one company was offering a deal that for the first 6 months, you would pay something like 14 or 15 euros per month. Then after that, the monthly charge would jump up to 24. But if you didn't already have a modem, then it would go up to, I think, 27 euros per month. Not everybody is going to be coming here with their own modem. And then depending on your connection type, whether it's fiber to the cabinet, fiber to the house, or no fiber at all. I mean, it's not uncommon here actually that people might have a cellular connection as their home connection. Just infrastructure here is maybe not the same as what you might be used to in a lot of other parts of the world. And here we're getting to maybe one of the mental costs that can be associated with a move to Italy, is that if you're needing things right away, maybe don't be so attached to getting everything set up like lickety split. It can take a little bit of time for your internet to get set up at your home. Expect maybe a few weeks, but it could be a week, could be a few days. It really depends on where you are and the availability of the company coming in to actually do the installation, because it may not actually be the company themselves that you are signed up with. It might be a third party that actually handles the infrastructure to actually come in and handle the connection to the network, the fiber network or whatever network it is. If it's a cellular connection, then it's a whole different thing, and you might actually be able to just get that right on the spot, ready to go. But another cost that can be a bit of a surprise for people coming to Italy might have to do with banking in the country. It's not uncommon to have to pay a monthly fee for your bank account. For kind of simple bank accounts, maybe we could be talking anywhere from like 3 to 8 euros, but if you're talking about maybe a business account or a professional account, some type of account with maybe some sort of executive level assistance, maybe we could talk about like 50 euros a month. There will be a cost associated depending on the bank, but the thing is also to keep in mind is that whether you're able to get a bank account or not might depend on your situation here, whether you have a job or not, or what you can actually put into the account. Even there are other options which might not necessarily cost per month, like for example Wise or Revolut, but then you might have different fees that you have to think about. And then the transfer fees, for example, if you're going to be bringing dollars in and converting those to euros, one thing that a lot of people forget about is that there might not just be a conversion fee, but there could be also the loss when you make that conversion. And depending on the conversion rates, you can really be losing a lot of money, especially if we're talking about things right now. The dollar to euro, in my opinion, is a bit rough. But maybe let's get back a little bit more into some of the mental costs of living in Italy. Again, like I was saying before, don't be so attached to things happening super quickly. That can cause a lot of stress, a lot of unnecessary stress, and there's a certain point where you really do have to kind of just let go and let things happen. I mean, what's that saying? Let go and let God. You have to be ready for things to take their time and for processes to happen, or be ready to follow up on processes that haven't yet happened. Sometimes taking a very active role can be very necessary, especially for processing of documents. Depends on where you are, depends on the local offices, depends on a lot of different factors. It depends on where you are in the country. In a very overgeneralized sense, you could think about the north maybe being a little bit more efficient, and the further south you go, things can change a little bit. I mean, even when you're in the center of the country. But if we're talking about overall, things definitely happen at a different pace here than they do in a lot of other parts of the world. So keep in mind also not just processing times, but you might have to go to a specific office multiple times. Again, we're talking about the mental cost here. Having to wake up super early in the morning for an appointment that is supposed to happen, that will probably happen, most likely, but you never know. Somebody could be on vacation or potentially on strike. These things happen. Or another thing that I've seen is that maybe with certain processing of documents, that maybe there could be a document waiting on somebody's desk and they just haven't quite felt like getting around to it, or they have other things that they need to attend to first that have a different level of priority. Keep in mind when you're submitting documents here that there may be a cost associated with them, and you might have to go to a tobacco store, tobacconist, tabacchi, to actually buy a government tax revenue stamp, Marca bollo, and what cost will be associated with that is going to depend on what process you're going through. And if you're trying to register something, or if you're trying to register yourself for something, not everything comes with the cost. Some things come with the cost, some things don't come with the cost. Again, we're talking about the mental side of things, and really you need to understand how things work here. Even for Italians, some of the things that you'll have to go through here can be quite confusing. I've spoken with Italian friends about this and saying about like, hey, is this just a me thing that like I'm having to figure out how to go through all of this? It's like, no, this is all of us. This is what we have to do. This is just part of life in Italy. And also, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying any of this to try and say don't move to Italy. I'm just talking about the realities. This is what Not Your Average Globetrotter is all about, talking about what actually it's like to live in a place, what comes along with that, because it's not just all sunshine, unicorns, rainbows, pizza, pasta, amore, especially because we are here back in Italy. I will go back to using that phrase, pizza, pasta, and amore. It's a beautiful thing. There's a wonderful side to it. But there's a lot more to life than just those things. But if you are here in Italy, you definitely should enjoy those things. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's a must. It's obligatory if you make your way here. And this is one of the reasons actually why I'm here in Verona today. There are a couple dishes that I really happen to like in particular. I don't think I'll be able to record them today, but maybe at a future date, I'll come back to Verona and record a little something. If that's something that you guys might be interested in at a later date when I come back again, let me know down in the comment section below. So far, we've talked about some of the financial costs and the mental costs, but let's talk about the emotional side of things, because that is a huge aspect to moving to anywhere in this world. Even if it's in your own country, even sometimes if you're in a big enough of a city, it can take its toll as well. But let's think about it like this. I've talked about this in so many episodes of Not Your Average Globetrotter. Your support network, your friends, your family, your people, your tribe, for lack of a better word. How will you do if you don't have those people around you, that you can't see them often, or that you can't just pick up, jump in the car, and go drive down the street, drive down to the other side of town, drive down the highway, and know that you can be there or that they can be there for you? What will that do in your life? Are you somebody who needs to connect with people in that way that you have? Because definitely when you move to a new country, it can take a little while before you really build that network for yourself, that group, those people who you really feel like you can connect with. And I know that's something that's happened to me. In each one of my international moves, there's a initial period where you are really on your own, and it can be very isolating, especially the more times that you do it. It can really wear on you, and that's something that I've learned to deal with, and I know to expect when I've done my international moves. But even after a number of international moves, it doesn't necessarily mean that it gets easier. It's just you know what to prepare for, and so maybe in that aspect it does get a little bit easier, but there's still that weight that it can have, or maybe even a little bit of a toll that it can take. But if we're talking about the fatigue and the tolls that things can take, being in a new culture and being outside of your comfort zone can really weigh on you. Being in a new place and having to learn how to walk and talk over again, learning a new language, learning new cultural ways. I mean, it's so often that people will think that the way that things happen in their country is the same on the other side of the world, or even if they know that it's going to be different in their new country and they're going specifically to this other part of the world because they're wanting something different, it's very often that many people will not actually fully grasp what that means until they are there with their boots on the ground. And I will say that there are certain things like processes here in Italy that have gotten better over the years, and there are more things that you can take care of online. But there are going to still be things that no matter what country you're going to say to yourself, well, why do I have to do this process? Why do I have to do that process? Why does this take so much more effort? Even just to go to the supermarket or just to go to a butcher and get a pound of meat, a kilo of meat, 500 grams of meat, whatever it is that you're trying to buy. There's that little extra effort, that little extra mental wear and tear that does take place over time. So that's something you have to really be ready for. But of course, if you've never done it before, it can be a challenge. But even for as many times as you do it, there is still a challenge there. There is still that hump to get over. Eventually, things get easier. And it's like I've said in many other episodes, that within those first few years, those are really the most difficult. And in my opinion, it really takes you until maybe the 5th year that you really see that you're kind of able to coast a bit. And that's if you are making a real effort during those first years, especially when it comes to the language. I'm not saying you have to get perfect with your linguistic skills, especially in Italy. It's not necessarily obligatory when it comes to the linguistic side to be speaking perfectly, because you do have a lot of gesticulation and that can help you. But it's also a crutch that can get in the way. But Italy for sure is one of those countries where it really is necessary to dive in as deep as you can into the language. I mean, I will say there are other countries, maybe like Portugal, if you're in the bigger cities, you could theoretically get away with a lot of your life in English there. But in a country like Italy, it would be a very big challenge It is maybe getting a little bit easier than it has been in the past, but even then, even if you don't speak the language perfectly, you do want to take the time to make the effort to put that mental strain on yourself to really jump in as far as you can. And then there is one ultimate cost of living in this country, and that has to do with your waistline. Are you willing to take the risk that is associated with living in this country, with all of the goodies, the sweets, the cannoli, the cream puff pastries, and the gelato that is everywhere? Maybe one of my favorite parts of being in this country, but yeah, it's definitely a cost that comes with living here. Yes, many people come here and they say, oh, the food is healthy and it's this and it's that. Even too much of a good thing can still be a bad thing for you. So do be careful when you come to this country, because it's really a big risk, especially if you're someone who happens to have a sweet tooth. I may or may not be speaking from personal experience on that one, but anyway, I'm Rafael Bifuri. Thank you for joining me for another episode like this of Not Your Average Globetrotter. Of course, a huge thank you to those of you who help to make episodes like this possible, of this project, and being able to come to a place like this. It is because of you guys that this project is able to continue. So a huge thank you to those of you who support this project through Patreon, as well as the one-time donation to rafaelbifuria.com/support, as well as the thanks button here on YouTube. It is all very greatly appreciated and really makes a huge difference. As well as if you have any thoughts on this episode, or agree with anything or disagree with anything, feel free to leave that down in the comment section below this episode here on YouTube. But of course, as always, I'm Rafael Bifuria. Stay safe and healthy out there, and I will see you all next time. Later.